Introductions are notoriously hard to write, but we have two tried and true methods here to hopefully simplify this process a little bit. So, on the one hand, we have the lead in. This is your very vanilla, very typical kind of cracking into a text here, in which you would start right off the bat with the context of this publication. So, the author, publication history, critical reception, legacy, etc. All things that kind of start to work our way in. I always like to tell students to, if you're having trouble getting going on a paper, just write the first true thing that comes to mind. And maybe that first true thing is just, author, published, title, in year. All of those facts are there for the taking, and then at least get you going to try to work your way into this text. So once you provide that context, then you start to narrow your focus a little bit. You start to envision a upside down triangle in which you're getting closer and closer to the specifics that you want to talk about before delivering finally your thesis statement, which would come at the end or close to the end of that introductory paragraph. Now we could also look at the attention grabber. So if you want something that's a little more spicy than this straight up lead in, giving that context, we would just add a provocative statement at the beginning. And then essentially start to do the same thing where we contextualize and focus the text before delivering our thesis statement. But that provocative statement is up front to kind of immediately get your reader thinking differently or flipping some expectation about the text you're working with on its head. So let's take a look at some templates of how we would accomplish this. So for that basic lead-in template, we would say title by author was published in year, and this is where you would give statement on critical reception, and it was received fabulously or it bombed in its time, however, or whatever the case may be. You're just kind of introducing the basic facts of this text and how it was received in its time. You might give a potential sentence on notable publication circumstances. Maybe this was a posthumous text. Maybe it came out after the death of an author, in other words, or maybe there was some contentious circumstance that surrounded the publication. All things you could easily glean by giving a quick Google to the book you're working with. And then since its publication or initial release, it has statement on the legacy. Even if it's a relatively recent text from the past 5 or 10 years, you could still give a little bit of context to how it has continued to impact the literary community. And then here's where you would start doing that whittling down work or getting to your specific focus. You'd say while title has been celebrated or discussed for most notable aspect or most typical thing that people talk about, comma, statement on your specific focus. So you're kind of distracting the reader or you're making them look here so that then you can shift their attention to what you want to look at. And then you would deliver that thesis statement, which would be a very resolute statement of your interpretation of this text that might go in a different direction from the expectations. The attention grabber template looks similar, except we have this provocative statement up front. So you open right away with something that is going to grab the reader's attention, maybe shift their focus or thinking on this book, and then get into that contextual information. So published in year, title, have this reception, and while it's been celebrated or discussed most for this, whittle down to your statement on your specific focus, and then that very resolute thesis statement would come. So let's look at what this would look like in action. So taking Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man as an example, but we are just looking at the formula here rather than worrying about the book itself. We can see all these elements at work. So first we have the lead in here. Ralph Ellison's novel Invisible Man was published in 1952 to widespread acclaim. Immediately hailed as a masterpiece of American literature, it went on to win the National Book Award for Fiction the very next year and has since become a standard in literature curricula. So setting the scene here, just giving basic information about how this book came out and how it was received when it came out. Now we're switching gears to talk about our specific focus. In a novel with so many profound and lasting things to say about race and American society, one thing that can get overlooked is the author's choice to withhold the protagonist's name from the audience. So whittling down here, directing the reader's focus into the specific detail of the book we want to talk about. And then finally, here's our thesis statement. By not giving his central character a name, Ellison is deconstructing the form of the novel and blurring the line between fiction and the social realities many Americans face on a daily basis. So you see the difference. The thesis statement is very resolute and direct, whereas the focus isn't quite there yet, but it's directing our attention in that direction. Now let's look at what an attention grabber might look like. So instead of just leading in with that publication context, we are saying something provocative. We're saying Ralph Ellison helped destroy the novel in 1952. So a reader might immediately think, what do you mean? Novels still exist? How, it's a statement that's jumping out and making you question things. So then we can get to our focus after that provocative statement, which sounds similar to what we just looked at, immediately hailed as a masterpiece at a time when many writers were stripping away typical conventions of the novel, such as plot and point of view. Invisible Man won the National Book Award for Fiction of the Year after its publication and remains a standard in literature curricula today. In a novel with so many profound and lasting things to say about race and American society, however, one thing that can get overlooked is the author's choice to withhold the protagonist's name from the audience. And then our thesis statement again, by not giving his central character a name, Ellison is deconstructing the form of the novel and blurring the line between fiction and the social realities many Americans face. So very similar between this lead in and this attention grabber. One just starts with a jarring statement that is going to, hopefully hook that reader in and get them to want to hear more.